this whole project began. It came to me as an idea in 2018, shortly after my father died. And we'd come into a huge archive of slides that were just there among his things. And as we started to look at them, we realized we hadn't seen many of them before. And the whole thing really intrigued me. There was one set that I saw. It was Christmas Day, 1973. I could tell because it was dated and stamped. And it was this panoramic set of the living room, dining room, kitchen, the house I grew up in. You could see one figure in the reflection. It was my father over his tripod. And when I saw that image, it inspired me to want to resurrect the whole room and then fill it with images of the inhabitants living their lives. And that's where the idea for the ghost apartment came from. The slides were shot in 1973, so a little bit before I was born. I was born in 76. And it was so interesting to see this room that I'd spent so many years in growing up, and to see it without all the furniture I knew, without me. The first time I drew my father, he was sitting in front of a window. He looked very tired. He was having a cigarette. His eyes were sort of downcast. And I think I chose that image because he wasn't looking into the lens, and I thought maybe it was a bit more approachable. And I did it with very shaky, nervous lines, not too sure. It was very tense drawing my parents. If I thought that I was frightened drawing my father, I was even more frightened, it turned out, to draw my mother. Because my parents separated many, many years ago now, but they were not together. My mother was very much fed up. So it felt tense and complicated for me to draw them in an embrace, because I didn't know how my mother would feel to see that. I knew that could be complicated for her, a little bit spicy, because this is someone that she's very much finished with and somebody I'm still trying to understand. So the images that I chose from before I was born, my older sister, who is a little over 4 years older, when she came into the ghost apartment, she came as I'd say about a 7-month-old baby. So my parents came from Jamaica for my father to finish his school to become a surgeon. And so they came, and I chose images of my sister with the suitcases. Those are the suitcases they brought from Jamaica. That was move-in day, and I love that my father captured something of that. And so seeing them, there's a different dynamic between them. My parents had been married they were in their first 2 or 3 years of marriage. They had a baby, and energy was different. The dream was still fresh, and this was before things started to go a little bit awry. Shortly before I was born, my father started to experience some career obstacles. As a foreign student, he was coming up against racism in the sort of Canadian flavor of it. My parents, being Jamaicans and coming from a country of Black majority in a very multicultural place, it's not to say that there isn't racism there, but there's a different sense of their role in it, a different sense of perhaps of their value, and certain things were not questioned for them. They both had university degrees. They were planning to come to Canada for, I think, only 5 years for my father to become the surgeon, and then they were going to go back to Jamaica and live their lives. This was not particularly like a refugee story. But as he started to run into difficulty getting a placement for the following year, and they would never explain why, and it became apparent that racism was the issue, my father has a particular character wiring where he cannot appear to work a system. He doesn't want to engage with or perpetuate a stereotype that Black men are untrustworthy, that they are dangerous in any way. And so I think he really felt the need to overcompensate, to always be showing that he's following the proper procedure, he's going through the correct channels. And in fact, his father was part of the police force, and so he had that encoding in him that he really needed to appear to be lawful. I think my father was really not just hurt by the obstacles in his career. I think it may have hurt his pride that his wife had to work. He must have felt that he wasn't providing adequately, and I think it started to crumble him inward, and he started to pull away. And around that time that he was starting to pull away more, that was when I was born. And I noticed that the imagery changes in his photography. I notice that his focus becomes a lot more these beautiful focused, laser focused portraits of his children, less of his wife, less of groups of friends, less of gatherings. They're more intimate and contemplative images. And he controlled them all. Like he would print only the ones that he thought were his personal best and put them in the album. And the rest of the slides were just tucked away until 2018. For all three of the women in the household feeling his absence, his growing absence, very slowly over the years, this archive proves simply by existing that he was present in some ways. And some of these images predate my ability to remember, but it is so beautiful. Like I look in the eyes were often so prominent in his photographs, and I can see the reflection of his shape as he was creating those images. I find that incredibly moving now as the daughter of that photographer. The very first time that I can remember my father taking my picture, I was a little over a year old, and he put me on the dining table. And as he was looking through his camera at me, he tapped the front of the lens with his finger and said, "Oh, Nikola, can you see Daddy's eye?" And I remember sort of leaning to look into the camera to see if I could see his eye. And I remember thinking I couldn't see it, but he was just shooting away. And I see that shoot, and it's one of the sort of iconic photo shoots of our family, these beautiful black and white images. And that interaction where he was looking at me and I was looking at him, we're trying, is this profound touch point in our connection as father and daughter, but also artist to artist, because while I've never formally studied photography, I still use that technique of can you see my eye whenever I'm photographing children or shy adults, because it invites them to slow down just enough, it trips their curiosity just enough that they pause to consider it, and I can grab a few frames of them being like beautiful, natural, and feeling kind of intimate in that connection. I look at some of these images and I see the images of my sister and my father together in an embrace. Those are bittersweet to me because over time, as this space between us and him expanded, my sister eventually went her own way, and she set some different boundaries for herself, and they became not totally estranged, but there was some tension there. And when I look at these images of them close, it touches my heart in a different way. But one of the things I really loved was when after my father kind of stopped taking these photos, probably around the time I was 8 or 9, he just sort of abruptly let it go. And he did that a lot. He let go of hobbies. He was very intense and let them go. Eventually, my sister and I started to document our own lives. And I remember my sister starting to take photographs of me, and I just loved that eye light. I loved eye contact with the people that I love. And it was my sister who shot this source photo with me with my thumbs in my ears. We've continued to be extremely closer and closer as the years go by. So there's an interesting inversion there of intimacy. What was remarkable about having my father's attention for these photos was that to me, in fact to everybody in our family, My father was a bit of a mystery, and over the years became more and more reclusive, and I felt his absence as a child. I felt, even though he was there in the house, I felt sometimes his emotional absence. He was mysterious. Where would he go? He had a night shift job, so he was kind of coming and going, and we didn't always see him. When we did, he was often sleeping. And my mother and sister also felt his absence. So when he was taking a photograph of me, it was a moment where we were both acutely present, and I wanted it to be memorable. I wanted it to mean something. By the time my sister was ready to move away in her early 20s, my father had lost so much in his career and was just holding so much grief and probably embarrassment about it that he just, I think he couldn't lose anymore, and he became more and more controlling about everything, and he became somebody that we were constantly being careful of. Watch your tone with your father. Ask him like this and not like this. He became somebody that we were very ginger about, even though everyone has many sides, and he could also be gregarious and warm and wonderful at parties and all of it. There were these places in between our hearts that felt cold sometimes. About a year or so after moving out of the ghost apartment, I got married and moved into yet another place. And I noticed over the years my father was withdrawing from me. He was still wonderful and warm and friendly on the phone, but he seemed to make more and more excuses about coming to see me. He would cancel a lot more often. And it was a long time before I found out, frankly, that he was having some health problems, some heart and lung stuff, which is what he eventually passed from. But he did not want his family to know that he was poorly and had multiple, I think 4 or 5 heart episodes over the years. He just kept hiding it, kept keeping that distance. It made it hard to be there for him, though I always kind of kept my heart light on for him, always holding space at Christmas, always hoping to be a warm place for him to return to if he decided to come back from his mystery. I wish he had shared more. I wish he had shared more of the archives while he was with us. The last time I saw my father was just a couple of months before he passed away, actually. And I knocked on his door, and he was very surprised to see me. He invited me in, and I have to tell you, this apartment was in the same building as the ghost apartment, same exact apartment building that he'd lived in since 1972. But at some point, he'd moved to another apartment. We chatted, and I noticed he didn't have a mustache anymore. And I commented on it, and his response was, "Oh, what, this? This isn't new. I shaved this off 4 years ago." And it made me realize that in all of my asking, all of my invitations, he had somehow wiggled away from me for 4 years. I hadn't seen him. And so that day, we started to take some photographs. He had a cell phone. And I don't think he'd ever taken a photo with it before. And I was showing him how to take selfies, and I was showing him my sexy smartphone, and we were playing with them. And it's so beautiful to me that on the last day that we saw each other, we were taking photos and seeing each other and kind of seeing each other through each other's eyes in the same moment, which was very stirring to me. And when I went to make what I'm calling our About the Artists image, I went to look for a photo from that day. And when I went through them, that there was a burst of photos, and I'd only ever seen the top one because I didn't know that there were any more. And when I expanded the file, I saw an image of my father smiling at me, the two of us smiling, and that is the photo that I use that nobody has ever seen before. And to my knowledge, it's the last photograph taken of my father, and I just couldn't be any more proud than to be in that photo with him and to have created it with him. Welcome to the ghost apartment. It's a draft. It's a draft. Come on in.
My gosh. This is unbelievable. Wow. My furniture. I love that. Oh my goodness, that tricycle. Christmas. Oh my goodness. Remember when people put Christmas cards up on the wall? I think we had a door with louvers, kitchen doors that close like this, and we hung them in the slots. This is amazing. Another world. Wow. How did you get that stereo like that? Fleshed out. Wow.
Now it's a cacophony of stereo.
Wow, look at that. It looks so, you know, real. I mean, it has dimension, it has depth, it has, it's beautiful. Oh, we were always dancing because we had that stereo, right? There was always music. There was music. Some of it, a lot of it was classical, but we danced a lot. We met on a dance floor. We were dancers. We were dancers.
Tell me how you met this dancing man.
I went to a university dance, fete, live music, all of that. I don't remember minutely what happened, but I know we danced a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards, I checked him out with the girlfriends more, you know.
So what did the friends say?
Oh, they said he was okay, but just a little weird.
Accurate.
And also at the time when he was, when you were like a year and a half and he was looking for placement that he didn't get in his job, in his work, he closed out the world. Like he closed me out too. You know, I hardly knew anything about what was going on with him. I couldn't. I would only know what he was thinking if I was there when he was telling somebody else, and that's terrible for a marriage anyway.
Yeah.
So that whole part of his life, he just closed off from me. So I have no insight into that really. You know, I just know that it became part of his escape mechanism from me, and to detach from this family that he felt he wasn't taking care of. He just totally focused on something else. And that was his way of dealing with anything. And of course, when it was total medicine, you know, forget it. I don't think he knew if he had children.
Yes.
I don't know if he knew he had a wife. You know, it was just totally his work. And that's the way he focused on his recurring interests. And that was it. He got the good like a I think after you were born, and started to focus on that, right? Before that, he did have a camera. Obviously, he took pictures before then. But when he really got into this, and then he got this disdain for snapshots. People take snapshots, and there's no way I would be holding his Leica. There's no way, It's like, trying to lend one of his LPs to somebody else. Nobody would ever dream of doing that. So you don't touch that camera, and eventually, I was mad about the purchase of the Leica in the first place, and the whole scenario with him and this camera just drove me bananas.
Can you just tell me?
Well, we had no money.
Okay. All right.
We had no money.
Fair enough.
And he leaps up and buys a camera for $600, which is like...
That's twice the rent back then.
Exactly.
I saw the rent papers. It was $300 for that 2-bedroom apartment back then.
Now, I had stayed home as a housewife raising kids, and then I suddenly had to get a job. I have no clothes. I'm looking for an office job. I have a degree. I'm not doing grocery store, I need clothes to go to work. And I'm trying to tell this man, I need clothes to find a job. I have to find a job. I need clothes to find a job. And then I get the clothes to buy the job. I get the clothes, minimum clothes to find a job. And then in retribution, he goes out and he buys this camera.
Oh,
he does it. He does it because I need money, therefore he's going to spend money too. You got yours? No, I'm going to get mine.
I see.
That was his total
logic
of doing
it's such a Libra move.
And so he got the Leica, and the trimmings, and the lenses, and and he had a friend to show him everything. And so, God forbid that he should turn that Leica on me, because I was just so furious.
I did not know that at all, because it makes me wonder where you were in some of these photos.
Furious, that's where I was.
Okay, all right. So,
I've been through many different levels of emotion since you started this.
I'm sure you have.
And there are things I didn't want to revisit.
As the parent who divorced him, yes.
Yeah, I did not want to revisit certain things, but they're there, and it's water under the bridge, Nobody got hurt.
Yeah.
So it's okay. I'd just rather be thinking of something else.
I'm sure you would. Thank you for being so gracious while I figure it out.
But it's nice also to have memories and look back on things. And of course, a lot of these pictures, I remember when he would project them on the wall, and we would see some of them. Like these I'm familiar with, But I'm sure there are thousands of slides that that I had never seen either.
There are so many that I know you have not seen.
Yeah, so. And frankly, I didn't care. I didn't give a fiddler's damn. A tinker's damn.
That's
or whatever
right,
it is.
Scorpio.
So, you and your camera, live happy together. Okay, see you later.
Sounds about right.
And there was a time when all these photographs stopped, of course.
Of course.
You'd get to a certain age, maybe 8, and boom, there are no more photos.
This one. I think around here is the last of like the concerted effort series.
Yeah.
Then I think there were the odd one here or there.
Then he moved on to trains.
Thank you.
I hope there'll be a check for me.